Growing up during the 1990s was far from easy for a young girl named Klynn Scales. Living with her mom and her two brothers in Kansas City, Missouri, their lives weren't exactly perfect, and it was a constant struggle to get by. There was, however, one moment in her daily routine that she loved: the time when she was able to wave to her favorite police officer on the street. It was a routine they both greatly enjoyed, and it brought a smile to both their faces. So when Klynn didn't show up for their daily greeting one day, the officer instantly realized something was wrong. It goes without saying, but no two people's lives are the same. For Klynn Scales, growing up in Missouri with her mother and two brothers during the 1990s, it was rather difficult. Their lives were a constant struggle for a number of reasons. They lived together in a dangerous neighborhood of Kansas City that was riddled with drugs, violence, and crime. To make matters even worse, they were barely scraping by, and paying the bills was a daily concern. There was, however, one moment in Klynn's life each day that she never took for granted: waving to her favorite local police officer. That routine brought a smile to both of their faces on a regular basis. One day when Klynn didn't show up to wave at him, the officer immediately realized something was wrong. See, Klynn and the officer had become close, and she saw him every day. It wasn't long before she began to recognize him as an important person and a figure of stability in her life. But there was a lot the officer didn't know, such as how Klynn and her brothers would often go without food. When they needed to eat, as a last resort, Klynn would venture to the local 7-Eleven to steal various food items. She knew that what they were doing was wrong, but she also knew that she and her family had to eat to survive. It wasn't even an option. Though the officer didn't know how dire Klynn's family situation was, he still felt something was amiss when she didn't show up to wave that one fateful day. So he walked up to her house to see what was going on. There, the officer found the girl lying on the floor and severely sick. She told him that she couldn't breathe, so he scooped her up and rushed her to the nearest emergency room, where she was diagnosed with severe malnourishment. He ended up saving her life that day. Through all the bad situations, I would just picture him saying that he was here for us, and that if we ever needed him, he'd be right there, Klynn recalled. He would always protect us, so those words would come to me during the worst times of my childhood life. Years after the officer rescued her, Klynn still remembered the events that took place that day and all that he'd done for her. He was that one person that I trusted in my life as a kid, she said. Roughly 20 years later, she determined how she wanted to repay him for his kindness. Klynn realized she'd never actually learned the officer's name, so she logged onto Facebook to find the Kansas City Police Department's page to see if she could identify him. She managed to reach Sergeant Jennifer Jones, who emailed Sergeant Jeff Colvin. In her email, Sergeant Jones informed Sergeant Colvin that a little girl who had previously lived near their police station had reached out on social media and was looking for someone who fit his description. Sergeant Colvin was shocked. Sergeant Colvin suddenly realized who the girl was. Luckily, he had vivid memories of rescuing Klynn that fateful day years ago. "I'd actually thought about her and wondered whatever happened to her," he said. Finally connected, Klynn and Sergeant Colvin made plans to meet. When they finally did, she had the opportunity to thank him for what he'd done for her. "I just never thought that this would happen, to find my hero," she said. Of course, her thanks meant a great deal to Sergeant Colvin. "Most times we go through our career not realizing we truly helped anybody out," he recalled. "That was the case with me, where I wondered if I was even in the right career path." Their reunion also allowed Klynn to reveal all he'd done for her that day. In rescuing her, he helped turn her life around and get her on track. Now she wanted to be a police officer, and she'd even enrolled in the academy in Houston, Texas. After Klynn arrived home that evening, she went on her Facebook page to personally thank Sergeant Colvin for what he'd done for her. Story of the day: I finally found my hero again. Her post read, "Thank you, Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. Jeff Colvin is not just a hero to me, but my guardian angel as well. He was there when I had no one," wrote Klynn. "I want him and every police officer to know that what you do, no matter how small or big, you can make a positive impact in someone's life, like he did mine." It wasn't long before Klynn's post attracted attention of the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department, who shared it on their page. Then people from all over began liking and commenting on it. One commenter in particular, who loved what Sergeant Colvin had done for Klynn, wrote about how inspiring the story was to her. It also allowed others to share how much respect they had for what he'd done all those years ago. Klynn was so thankful that she not only got to share the heroic story of Sergeant Colvin from when she was a child, but the people around the internet were able to be inspired by it as well. He was most certainly a hero. It just goes to show that you never know the impact you have on someone's life until they let you know. Thankfully, Klynn had the opportunity to let Sergeant Colvin know just how much his actions that day meant to her.